were both born in the same hospital.
1921.
7 days apart.
In the same hospital.
We both grew up one block away from each other on the Lower East Side.
On Delancey Street.
My family moved to the Bronx when I was 10.
He lived on Fordham Road.
Hers moved when she was 11.
I lived on 183rd Street.
For 6 years, she worked on the 15th floor.
I worked for a very prominent
as a
neurologist.
Nurse, where I had to practice on the 14th floor, the very same building.
We never met.
Never met.
Can you imagine that?
You know where we met? In an elevator.
I was visiting family.
In the Ambassador Hotel in Chicago,
He was on the
Illinois.
3rd floor. I was on the 12th.
I rode up 9 extra floors just to keep talking to her.
9 extra floors.
Welcome to this presentation of the Paper Street Podcast. Welcome to Late to the Party, a program on the Paper Street Pictures Podcast Network. Your hosts for the following proceedings are myself, Shawn Talley, and joining me as he traditionally does for this, a fellow member of the Paper Street Pictures production team. And though he may look like a normal person, he is actually the angel of death. He is Mr. Cameron Burns. How goes it, Cam?
I mean, wow, that's certainly an intro. I'm doing okay. My New Year's resolution is to eat healthy, so I'm hungry and irritable. But other than that, I'm doing all right. I'll try to not yell at anybody this episode, but I make no promises.
Same, and all trying to get better in the new year for sure. And this movie, strangely enough, as people are listening to this, they know it happens to be about When Harry Met Sally, which we had placed in this January slot for a reason, because it does have that New Year element to it and ends on New Year's Eve as Harry professes his love to Sally in the finale there. It's funny, this was, again, has nothing to do with, unfortunately, the tragic events that are sort of surrounding it now, which is the untimely passing of Rob Reiner and his wife Michele in the month of December.
Yeah, it was just kind of one of those sad coincidences that just kind of happened. But yeah, the Rob Reiner passing was an absolute tragedy. I mean, we're not going to get too deep into that. There's a million other places we could talk about that. But that did really affect me in a way that I kind of wasn't expecting to. I love Rob Reiner as a filmmaker in that he's made a bunch of great movies, but it's not like I have his poster on the wall. It's not like, there's been plenty of people passing that I feel, I don't know, closer to in some weird way. But I think it's just the combination of everything going on in the world and the death by 1,000 paper cuts that it really hit me in like we just can't have nice things sort of way, that his passing and also the way that it happened. The whole thing is such a tragedy.
No, for sure. And we'll get into his legacy and other stuff as we talk with our guests, Becky and Brad, here coming up. We've talked about him on this podcast before, and we've already even done a Rob Reiner movie in Princess Bride, which is one of those all-timers, and his kind of legacy being a guy that just had one of those great initial runs out of the box where he made 6 or 7 straight that were just kind of quotable to this day. Words like mockumentary exist because of Spinal Tap, and the very idea of a bucket list exists because of a later, arguably lesser movie of his. But yeah, between A Few Good Men and Misery and Stand By Me, these are just kind of Mount Rushmores of their respective genres. And again, we'll talk about him as we get into it though. But part of the kind of came around, funny enough, Becky, my co-host on the regular Paper Street podcast, she had submitted some movies she'd not seen, which included The Burbs, and we did that episode. You can find that elsewhere here in the Late to the Party catalog. And when she did say Harry Met Sally, I had the harebrained idea to well, has your partner seen that by chance? Because it seemed like the most obvious thing to do was have a couple do this particular rom-com, because it is in such high regard as rom-coms go. It's kind of the number one ranked one or top 3 or 4 in so many lists. But we do have a couple on the show here, so unprecedented in that regard that we got a double guest this time around.
That's right, everybody. We're breaking format. It's a very special episode of Late to the Party with not one, but 2 guests. And they're dating, and they're lovely.
Yes, very special episode where Brad reveals he's a bedwetter, and Becky gets trapped in a refrigerator. So we all remember the 1980s. Very special episode.
Punky Brewster, trapped in a refrigerator. I shit you not. I will never, ever find myself trapped in a refrigerator because that scared me to death.
It was the friend Cherry, if I'm not mistaken.
It was Cherry.
Punky Brewster.
Correct. Punky helped get her out and give her CPR because earlier in the episode, they were learning CPR in their elementary school class.
And see, that paid off.
That's right. That's what we call foreshadowing in the business.
But yeah, speaking of 1980s movies, where does this one lie with you? Is it one you've seen a lot or a few times, or at least you know somewhat? Harry Met Sally, that is?
No, it's a movie I've definitely seen. I don't know that I've seen it more than once all the way through in one sitting. It's also one of those movies that over the last 35, 40 years of being alive and owning a television has showed up in 10-minute chunks probably hundreds of times on my TV. So I've seen the main scenes. I know the beats and mostly, but it's been a long time since I've watched it, cover to cover, and not a movie that I know super, super well, not a movie that I consider one of my all-time favorites or anything. It's a movie I respect, but it's not, not really a subgenre, as genre, whatever you call rom-coms. It's not really a genre that I love. Normally I need something to bring me to a rom-com like baseball or something else that I already care about. But I respect Rob Reiner. I respect the game. I respect Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal, and that they turned out this great version of a movie that I otherwise would have never seen if not for its classic nature.
Right. And usually at the top, we kind of run this through and we sort of forgot, speaking of, breaking format, but I'll do the explainer that we usually pitch to you for. But what this show is, in case you were listening for the first time, is we do reach out to some filmmakers and people in and around the industry that we find to be interesting folks. And we ask them what the biggest, most popular, most maybe in the zeitgeist kind of movie that for whatever reason they have never seen. And then we will pick one that sort of fits the mold. And again, this one just made sense for a couple that had not seen a rom-com and who happen to be fans of some rom-coms. They're pretty wide in their genre love. But we get on the horn with them, we ask them why they haven't seen it, and then we send them on their way to view it. And on the other side of that, we have a big chat with them about the film, their experience with it, and thoughts on it, and a whole lot more. So wherever the conversation takes us, that is kind of the gist of this particular program. So having said all that, Cameron, what do you say we pitch to a talk with Becky and Brad and ask them why they missed this one?
I have to say, listening to you give the explainer gave me some real existential dread. If that is not what I do, then what is it that I do? I'm really going through it now. I'm usually the explainer guy, but I'm going to do my best to collect myself, and let's have a chat with Brecky.
Yes. Well, let's ask Brecky why they have not seen When Harry Met Sally.
Well, he was a head counselor at the boys' camp, and I was a head counselor at the girls' camp. And they had a social one night, and he walked across the room. I thought he was coming to talk to my friend Maxine, because people were always crossing rooms to talk to Maxine, but he was coming to talk to me. And he said,
"I'm Ben Small of the Coney Island Smalls."
At that moment, I knew the way you know about a good melon.
Joining us on this installment is not one, but two talented folks. First up, he's a screenwriter, a filmmaker who has also written for the likes of Bloody Disgusting and Fangoria. He has served as a host and a programmer for one of our very favorite film festivals, Colorado's Telluride Horror Show. Please welcome to the program, Brad McHargue.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. And we are also joined by his partner in life and filmmaking. She is someone who has also contributed to the likes of Dread Central and has written, produced, directed features and many a short film herself. This person has also been my trusty co-host on our flagship show, the Paper Street Podcast, since its inception. Welcome back to the program, Mrs. Becky Sayers.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always good to be on the other side.
Hello, Brad and Becky. That's right, everybody. It's a double episode.
Whoop, whoop.
Somehow this came up long ago. I know Becky had joined us for an episode on The Burbs, and we had mentioned some other blind spots, and she said that neither she nor Brad had seen a particular movie in question here. And it was funny enough, it was on the docket next, just because it happens to have a kind of holiday season, winter season aspect to the movie. And yes, that film in question is When Harry Met Sally. Both of these folks have never seen that movie, so we are here to talk about that one.
So I know why Becky hasn't seen this, because if it's not a horror movie, Becky ain't watching. But Brad, what's your excuse?
True.
What's your excuse here, Brad?
I just have a lot of blind spots, and to be entirely truthful, it's possible I may have seen it like when I was 8, but the only memory I have of it is through cultural osmosis, I guess, because it's referenced so much in so many shows. But yeah, I remember absolutely none of it beyond those 3 core important scenes that everyone knows about.
His
Becky, are you
the I'll have what she's having, and then maybe 1 or 2 other random moments, I guess.
Oh yeah, maybe just 2 then. Those are the two that I can think of.
Yeah, that's all I know.
That's it.
as well.
That's it. That's all I know. But those are
I'm going to say
so
it might
often.
just be cultural osmosis because those are the kind of things you see in montages and Oscar clip shows and stuff like that, where those two bits certainly resonated. And as many of Reiner's early films did, they're so quotable. They're so, he was working on some pretty masterful scripts by the likes of Nora Ephron and William Goldman and stuff like that. So this was another one that I would say, I don't like saying Mount Rushmore's all the time, but this is one people would probably put in the rom-com Mount Rushmore, just in that it is kind of hollowed ground and was sort of an instant classic as many of his early films were. So before we do talk about it, we always at the very end of this program we'll talk about larger blind spots. You guys both have a handful, but are there any other of Reiner himself's blind spots that kind of was between that Spinal Tap and A Few Good Men run that included this movie, Princess Bride, Stand By Me, Misery? Are those missing from your personal oeuvres?
Oh, wow. That is a very good question. I recently saw A Few Good Men, thanks to Becky.
Yeah, that was by chance. We just watched it last year, I think, in 2025.
I don't think I've ever seen Sleepless in Seattle. I don't think I've ever seen Misery, to be honest with you.
Oh wow, that's a big one. That's a horror one too. I'm genuinely
Stephen
surprised.
King adaptation. There's a lot of boxes that checks.
I'm not surprised that you hadn't seen Sleepless in Seattle.
I'm surprised being a partner of Becky Sayers, who has dressed as the character from Misery. I've seen her in person. That
it's set in Colorado, right?
To be fair, it's, again, entirely possible I have seen these and I just simply don't remember.
Don't walk it back now, Brad. You have to eat this Misery thing. We're going to talk this out.
Like we had discovered aliens that you hadn't actually seen the whole thing until we sat down and started watching it. And you're like, maybe I haven't seen this.
Becky,
that is true.
Does this kind of stuff, Becky, worry you that he's not being totally truthful in other portions of your relationship? Or how does that work?
No. I trust that he doesn't have a great memory. But also, Brad didn't grow up in like the same type of movie loving household that I think a lot of us did, where my family was constantly at Blockbuster, right? Like we watched movies together as a family almost every night, which I realized later was not a normal thing. Yeah, not to speak for you, Brad, but I don't think you had that same experience growing up. So that naturally, there's probably a lot of blind spots.
I would love to hear about that. Yeah, I don't know that I know your origin story, Brad.
Yeah, I distinctly remember always going to, rarely Blockbuster, it was more Hollywood Video or Video Library in Florida. Back when I was, in high school and middle school, my mom would browse like latest releases and all that jazz. And I would immediately go to the back corner. And I very clearly remember where it is.
For the porn?
I was going to say behind the beaded curtain? That corner?
Behind the beaded curtain. No, in Video Library, they had this cordoned off area and everything went in alphabetical order with A starting on the left and looping around to the right. And it was just the horror section. And I always remember on the left, I would always see the box art for April Fool's Day. Yes. And on the right, I would always see the box art for Waxwork. Those are two very vivid memories in my head. To this date, can I say that I've seen either of those two movies? No, I was more of just kind of browse the boxes because my mom, not that she wouldn't let me get them, I just never did. But for me, it was always just Friday the 13th is kind of where I got started with my love of horror, along with watching late night shit with my dad on Showtime and Cinemax. I remember watching Frankenhooker with my dad when I was 11.
Love it. Shawn, I think we need to do a side episode where Brad watches April Fool's Day.
I think we might need to do one where Brad watches Jaws, Back to the Future, and Jurassic Park, and we ask him halfway through, do you remember any of this? And he's like, no, osmosis. I haven't actually seen these.
He's like, I've seen the dinosaurs in a clip show. I've seen those
all the time.
So when did you start?
What Brad's
when
actually
did you
seen.
Start to become a horror aficionado? Was it because you were going to the video stores and yearning to see all these that you started to kind of want to watch more and more stuff?
Yeah, so I was never a big movie person, pretty much all throughout high school and college. I loved movies, obviously, and I loved horror. Horror has always been a huge part of my life, but it really became a focus of my life in some capacity when I had just graduated grad school and I started to write a horror blog, and it just snowballed from there. And then I started really getting into it. So I've always loved horror in some capacity, mainly a focus on again, Friday the 13th was a big thing for me. Got into a huge argument with a kid back in middle school over Friday the 13th Part 4 being the actual last movie in the franchise. And I was the wrong one there. I said it was. because the final chapter, yada, yada, yada.
Freezing cold take right there.
I know, right? But yeah, it was kind of just a slow build from like, I've always loved it to it became a part of my life.
I like to think that Brad just didn't know Roman numerals. And he's like, obviously the final chapter is the one. He just didn't know what the V's and the I's meant. Like, clearly, this is the last one.
I'm pretty sure I was in elementary school at the time, so I was just fucking stupid.
Wait, was this you thought in the moment because they called it final chapter, it was going to be the last one? Or there were already future ones that had happened and you just didn't realize because it was called final chapter?
That. I just simply did not have the cultural awareness around the myriad sequels of the franchise.
I see. That makes sense. So I need to know before we continue, what did you go to grad school for? What did horror ruin? Like, what kind of normal career did horror ruin?
Oh, God. Classics. I have a bachelor's and master's in classical civilizations, and I realized halfway through my first semester in grad school that I did not fucking want to do this. Just awful.
A lot of money and time later.
I can already tell you, no one's hiring. No one's hiring. So horror might have actually been the more lucrative career choice.
Well, I'd always loved mythology. So most of the stuff that I tried to veer towards was mythology in grad school, and I do leverage some aspect of it, and like some of the scripts I write. But I work in digital marketing, which I just accidentally fell into by way of writing. So that's what pays the bills.
Fair enough. So Becky, going back to you, what is your kind of relationship with this movie? What do you know about it? How much cultural osmosis have you gotten? Are you a rom-com? I mean, we all know you as a horror guru, but do you also have a soft spot for rom-coms, or is that why it was, a movie you hadn't seen?
So I guess my relationship with When Harry Met Sally, it's just something I've missed. It wasn't intentionally avoiding or anything like that. I do remember from as a kid seeing the diner scene and the I'll have what she's having in so many different montages and fun edits and restaurants using it. I feel like in commercials after you're looking at some delicious food item, it cuts to I'll have what she's having. So I was very aware of the movie and it wasn't intentionally avoided. My family would watch a wide breadth of films, but I would say rom-coms were probably not the most common for us to watch. It was a lot of action movies was probably what I watched the most growing up with my family. But I was 2 years old when Harry Met Sally came out.
Oh, you really are the baby of the group.
I definitely missed its initial run for sure. And so it's possible like my family watched it when I was too young to even remember it. But I do like rom-coms. I'm kind of picky about my rom-coms and my comedies, though. There's some that I absolutely love, like The Wedding Singer to me is one of the greatest romantic comedies, if not my favorite, probably, of all time. So we'll see if When Harry Met Sally can kind of match up to that.
The best romantic comedy ever is You've Got Mail.
Which is funny because you haven't seen Sleepless in Seattle.
That's interesting, yeah, which is not Rob Reiner. He did mention that earlier. I wanted to chime in and say that. That is a Nora Ephron, though, I believe.
Yeah.
I unabashedly love that movie.
So I just rewatched that with my wife, I think around maybe last Christmas season. I had not seen it in a long time, and there is a point in that movie that I still maintain all through these years. I'm like, oh, she should have known it was him at this exact moment. It's still like one more beat or two till she figures it out, but it is good. It's better than I thought in my head. I will say, you could argue that that's one of those movies that they do kind of earn it. They fight for it throughout the movie and earn it. And I do think if you dig You've Got Mail, I have a decent feeling you'll kind of understand in the same vein. I think this one earns the rom-comminess of it all. The spoilers, they get together, guys. We're not showing you like a tragedy. It's a rom-com for a reason.
It's a com, not
they get together.
Like the statute of limitations is passed for spoilers on this.
Yeah, guys, 1989. Come on.
It's a com, not a dram. You knew that going in, everybody. But no, it is a little surprising that you had seen the one and not the other. I came up very much like Becky and like a family that watched a lot of movies, but romantic comedies were towards the low end of what we actually watched. And so I've seen the classics, but not much else. I would maintain that Bull Durham is probably the best romantic comedy of all time if we're throwing out hot takes. But it's definitely not a genre. And Wedding Singer also is amazing. But definitely not a genre that I am any sort of expert in outside of the Nora Ephron stuff and then the stuff everybody's seen. I'm not a deep cut guy as it pertains to rom-coms. Luckily, we're not really talking about a deep cut here.
And I was looking when I was thinking about Rob Reiner's filmography, a lot of his films were a big part of my childhood growing up. So it's kind of interesting that, how he had that he's known for that run in the beginning of his career with like 7 great films in a row. I've seen all of them except When Harry Met Sally.
I've seen all of them except Misery.
Was one of my favorite movies for a long time. I wanted to be a military lawyer when I was like 7 or 8 because of that movie.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And that, that really blew Sorkin up too, Aaron Sorkin, who became, that was his play that got adapted into a film, and he's gone on to be a super screenwriter and now director himself. But yeah, that movie holds up too. That's another one I rewatched just within the last year that I really still thought popped everywhere it needed to.
It's funny when you talk about that Rob Reiner run. I've seen all of the big ones, but I feel like Reiner is one of those filmmakers that you've seen them all, but they're not movies outside of Princess Bride for me. They're not movies that I go back to religiously. So it's like I've seen When Harry Met Sally, but I haven't seen it in probably over a decade. I haven't seen Stand By Me in a long time. I haven't seen Misery in a long time. I haven't seen Spinal Tap in a long time. I haven't seen A Few Good Men in a long time. So like I love all of those movies and I think they're great, but for whatever reason, they don't fall into a grouping of stuff that I kind of go back to every 5 years or so. So it's been a hot minute. So I'm excited. Shawn kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit that he hadn't seen Misery, and that's going to be hopefully the next episode we do, unless it isn't.
There might be a Brad run-in on that episode.
Yeah, Brad might just call in.
I watched it too, guys. Becky made me by tying me up in a cabin.
Looking at his list, though, like I don't think I've ever seen This Is Spinal Tap.
Oh.
I've seen Stand By Me, The Princess Bride. I've seen North, weirdly enough.
That's a swing and a miss. Everybody would agree on that.
I have not seen North. That was
prioritized poorly. Prioritized poorly.
To be fair, I think I saw it when it came out in 1994. So
I mean, that's that's when everyone saw it. No one's watched North since 2008. So it's a loss to time.
It ceased to exist after its theatrical run.
Elijah Wood's lucky to have a career after that movie. That movie was so lambasted by critics at the time. It was insane. It almost got like too much hate, where it's going to have some weird, reassessment here soon now in his passing. But we won't go too far into Reiner and that run, because I'm sure we're going to talk about it more here on the other side for obvious reasons once we do it. But yeah, it is kind of wild that I still can't believe that Brad hasn't seen Misery, being that he lives in a house with Becky Sayers.
Yeah,
it's the biggest thing blowing my mind. But yeah, based on the fact that you both, you may not like the schmaltzier or the more derivative rom-coms, but the good ones kind of rise above. And I think I have a decent feeling this one will be the same for you guys. So we should let you go here so we can watch this movie.
I'm excited. Can't wait.
Yeah, me too. I'm stoked.
So yes, let's do it. We will return in just a moment here to get Becky and Brad's fresh thoughts on When Harry Met Sally and much more. So stay tuned.
My first interaction with Brad ever came online on Twitter. I was planning to attend the Telluride Horror Show in 2017 for the first time, which is a horror film festival in the Colorado mountains. And I had put out a tweet that said, "Hey, I'm going to the Telluride Horror Show and looking for movie buddies." And this person named Brad McHargue responded, "Hey, come find me at the fest. I'll buy you a beer." And my first reaction was, who the hell is Brad McHargue?
And I had actually been following you for a while on Instagram because I was just following friends of friends who had horror blogs, because I had a horror blog at the time. Naturally, I just kind of want to include as many people in the festivities, as it were, at the festival. I think we ended up first meeting at karaoke that I was hosting, right?
Yeah, and by chance, it took place on Friday the 13th. So I like to say it's our Friday versus.
Yeah. Yeah, and through all the technical difficulties of trying to run karaoke, we ended up chatting a little bit, and then
we basically shut down.
Yeah, we shut down the venue, and then I wanted to walk you home, but you ended up walking me home because I was so drunk I couldn't really walk
you were
straight. I was
not making good choices. No, put it that way.
Walking in the middle of the road. We got to your hotel. And our friend Mike and I started going off to our condo, and I turned to Mike and I just said, "Man, she's cute as fuck." And then throughout the weekend, I think I just kind of tried to angle my way into spending time with you. And I think the first movie we saw together was Creep 2.
Yes, Creep 2, which is kind of weirdly romantic in a very dark and twisted sort of way. But I do remember, I don't know if Brad remembers this, but I do remember the moment where I thought, I think he kind of likes me. Was we were sitting in the bar at the Sheridan, which is an old historic venue in Telluride, and I had a cocktail, and I was finishing the cocktail, and it had this huge cube of ice that just slammed and hit me in the face when I was drinking. So very graceful move. But there's something about the way that Brad looked at me that I was like, uh-oh. I think this might be a thing.
I don't remember that moment, weirdly. I do remember the drinks. sitting at the hotel bar, very good drinks from what I recall. And then I think after that, we split off to go see respective movies, or I had to host something or something like that.
But yeah, then after the festival, we just kept talking virtually a lot.
Yeah.
And a few months later, we decided to make it official. And he was living in Denver. I was living in Seattle. And we kind of flew back and forth to see each other for a while. And yeah, but now we're both living in Denver. And how long ago now? How long have we been together? You're better at that.
We made it official in 2017, pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah.
Like 2 months after the festival ended. So it snowballed pretty quickly. So yeah, 9 years or 8 years.
Well,
we're in our ninth year.
We're really bad at this.
Yeah, but honestly, I couldn't imagine a better partner or anyone else I'd want to spend my life with and make movies with and do trivia with and go to film festivals with.
Ditto. And I'm also really tickled that our Meet Cute-iversary is also our Friday the 13th anniversary, so we get to celebrate that multiple times a year.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hey there, welcome back. When we last left off here, our guests, Brad and Becky, had not seen When Harry Met Sally. They were late to the party, but we are glad they made it, and we welcome them back, more cultured individuals, more learned film viewers. A lovely couple who have now seen a film with many a loving couple, 1989's When Harry Met Sally. Brad and Becky, do you feel any or all of the aforementioned? How are you feeling?
I'm very happy. Yeah, I'm very happy that I've now seen When Harry Met Sally. I feel like I'm fully in on some of the cultural zeitgeist moments now and have context for some of the iconic scenes in the movie.
Same.
Brad hates it. Oh, okay.
No,
Thank you, Brad, for that thought-provoking response.
Sorry. No, we finished watching it, and I think within 5 minutes I turned to Becky and I was like, okay, I actually have not seen this. But obviously, I knew the diner scene, and I knew I love it when you get the little crinkle above your forehead scene at the very end.
Yeah, those are kind of the two we talked about on the front half that you kind of knew just from cultural osmosis. So that's good, because Cameron and I do know that one day there will be an episode where one of us, or the guests, I should say, will just hit us up midway and be like, yeah, I've actually seen this movie. We're waiting for that to happen. So glad we're still batting 1,000 in that regard.
I was actually kind of surprised how little I remembered of the movie. I mean, I've definitely seen it all the way through, probably at least once, and I've seen it in 10-minute increments on TBS, I'm sure, over the years, but I had kind of forgotten the hook of it, which is that it's the antithesis of a rom-com and that they don't really ever date. And I had forgotten that. So it was interesting. It was one of those things where you've seen a movie so long ago that you kind of don't remember any of it. So it was much more fresh than I thought it was going to be when I started and hit the play button.
So we kind of jump around here. There's not necessarily a flow to it. Just we'll talk about stuff as it comes up. But did you guys find any of the cutaways to the couples charming? Because I think what Cameron just mentioned, I think they worked only because at the very end you do see them, the main characters themselves, do that similar bit where they're like, only took 3 months. And then she's like, well, 12 years and 3 months, to his point.
Yeah, we I think after each one, it was always like, oh my God, they're just the cutest old couple.
Yeah, we had a lot of aww sort of moments.
Yeah, I think that really holds the movie together in a way where it kind of shows you where we're going, even if it doesn't outright tell you. It's like, stay with us. We're going to get there. You know what I mean? And I think that was a really clever conceit, which I believe I read was not in the original script of the movie. That was the thing Rob Reiner added. But yeah, it really does kind of buoy the movie in a way where you're like, trust me, we're going to get there. You're going to get there. Stay with us. I thought it really helped the kind of the pacing and the getting to the love stuff, which does happen very, very late in the movie.
Yeah, we also had a conversation about whether or not they were actual couples, because I know like at the beginning of Love Actually, where it's all the real footage of the people seeing each other in the airports and all that jazz. We were like, are these actual people that they decided to interview? And I think I read somewhere, probably Wikipedia, they actually did interview people, but the people on camera are actual actors.
Correct.
Right.
That was, we do the same. Look, if you went to Wikipedia, then you've got the same information Shawn and I have. But
got it.
But yeah, that is we're not the deepest divers on these either. But that was my understanding as well, where Reiner went out and got a bunch of different people's kind of origin stories, their meet cutes, and then he hired actors to actually play it. But what's interesting is they don't feel like actors. They really do feel like the actual people, both kind of in look and delivery. So it was interesting that they were actors. I was surprised by that.
Yeah, it caught me off guard when the movie started. I did not know anything about that it had these little vignettes in it. And it opens with one. And I went, oh, this kind of has like almost a Christopher Guest type of vibe. And then it had this very naturalistic acting. And it was kind of funny how one of the performers' reactions to hearing the story was humorous. So I really enjoyed that because it immediately made me interested in the movie because it was one of those things where I thought, oh, this isn't what I was expecting. And to your point, Cameron, the whole thing, while it's a template in some ways for romantic comedies, it's also kind of an anti-template, anti-rom-com in a lot of ways because it's all about all the weird, circuitous ways in which people find each other and find love. Sometimes it happens right away, sometimes it doesn't. And I think those little anecdotes kind of help weave that story of there's no one path for love and romance. So I thought it served the film well and that it's kind of upholding these romantic tropes at the same time as adding a new flavor to them.
Yeah, some are love at first sight. Some are, like they said, you know, they met, they were in the same building for years and all that kind of thing. I'm guessing he just picked actors over the natural folks because maybe there's a little too much and ahhing. You know, I'm sure it's the same story that they kind of recited it exactly. But yeah, they did end up with actors, but they do feel. It's funny you mentioned Christopher Guest because the word mockumentary exists in our culture because of Rob Reiner and Christopher Guest because this is Spinal Tap walked so Guest could continue running the rest of his life with that format in all his movies.
I suspect it shouldn't be too surprising that really not so far off of Spinal Tap, Rob Reiner chose to use this kind of conceit, which was kind of his sweet spot. But I do, before we jump too far into the actual nuts and bolts of the movie, I feel like we kind of breezed by, you know, Brad and Becky's actual response to the movie. Like, how much did you guys really enjoy it? How much, like, what was your takeaway on kind of how much you liked it?
As soon as the credits started rolling, I looked at Becky and I was like, I absolutely love that movie, 5 stars.
Yep, he's not lying.
Wow.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
And here I thought you were dead inside, Brad. This is a real new Brad.
He exposed real Brad when he said he loved You've Got Mail. So I was like, oh, good, because this is like the precursor to Nora Ephron working again with, you know, Meg Ryan a few times with Sleepless in Seattle and
a big softie. That's what you are.
Oh
Brad.
yeah.
Big softie.
Oh yeah.
I really liked it. I didn't say 5 out of 5 stars like Brad. I'm maybe a little less of a softie, but I really enjoyed it. I thought the writing in particular was super snappy, really funny. So I appreciated the dialogue more than anything, I think. It felt modern at times, even though, you know, we knew it was filmed in 1989 or 1988. So yeah, I really enjoyed it though. It probably didn't beat The Wedding Singer. As I mentioned, that is my favorite rom-com of all time. But it's up there.
Yeah, Time's been very kind to Wedding Singer. I do feel like as Adam Sandler's comedies go, that is probably maybe the highest regarded one these days. Maybe because it was set in a period setting, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's funny enough, Carrie Fisher, who script doctored a number of movies, also script doctored some of the dialogue for that. Often she comes in when it's a movie written by men and she has to punch up the female dialogue.
Wait, Carrie Fisher?
Yes, the Carrie Fisher famously script doctored that and Sister Act and a few other major movies.
I did not know that. I thought for sure you meant to say Nora Ephron and just misspoke, but nope. I had no idea Carrie Fisher was a writer
herself.
Wow.
Oh yeah, Postcards from the Edge.
Yeah.
I guess I realized she wrote a little. I didn't realize she was like an employed writer. I thought she just kind of did it from time to time. But yeah, I didn't realize she was a script. I had no idea. I learned something today.
Lucas and Rian Johnson and others have said, that she's even come in and helped with dialogue even in the Star Wars movies. So that's been her thing. She had many things. That was one of her things. That and cocaine.
Isn't it sad when people are like talented at a lot of different stuff? I have this theory that everyone, kind of by law of averages, everyone has one thing they're really good at. But because people like Justin Timberlake and Carrie Fisher have 5, that's why I don't have one.
Oh, they took it from you?
Yeah, it's like law of averages. It just kind of shook out. Someone has to have none if Timberlake can sing and dance and act, right? Like,
it's like when you see a director with a 6-pack, you're like, no, you should be schlubby with a hat on. Or you see a comedian who's really good looking, you're like, no, stay in your lane. Be funny, but don't be good looking too.
I don't hate those people. I admire them. I'm going to be the odd person out here and say that. I just think it means if you really cared about those other things, you would try harder.
Are you saying I can dance like Justin Timberlake if I just tried harder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, with enough time, dedication, energy, and education, you can do that.
Yeah,
you could make the choice to do it.
I want to be great at everything I try at the very first time. That's why I just don't try many things.
Let's see. Brad gets it. He gets it.
All right. Question for Becky here. There's been a lot of reassessing of many movies, and this one does hold up, to Brad's point, a lot better than a lot of 80s movies as far as the progression. Becky said so as well, like some of the modern isms. I mean, there's only a few lines you could strike from a modern retelling of this, and it would still feel of the moment, just about the mating game. But how do you feel about the reassessment of Billy Crystal with a beard in the sweater? Because women nowadays are saying, oh no, it's not a far stretch that he could score a young Meg Ryan, that they're starting to come around on the bearded Billy Crystal.
I think I've told you many times, I think all the men on this call have heard me say, all men look better with a beard. And Billy Crystal, like, wow, so much better with a beard. I said something in the movie.
In the middle of the movie, I looked over at Becky and I was like, do you find Billy Crystal attractive? And without missing a beat, she was like, ew, no. And then a second goes by and she's like, but he looks a lot better with a beard.
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of felt like watching the movie now from with a 2026 kind of viewpoint, he feels miscast and like he could never get Meg Ryan. But you have to think back to the 80s where, you could look like Billy Crystal and you could be a rock star or you could be a leading man in Hollywood. It's just, that doesn't exist anymore. Gone are the days that Christopher Cross is on the radio. Like, it was a different time back then, and you could be just kind of a milquetoast white guy and be like a sex symbol. It was just a thing then that it isn't now for some reason I don't understand.
I still think there's some modern examples of that, but also he's at least 10 years older than Meg Ryan, which is still a thing that happens in casting today, right? Where you have the younger woman cast against a much older man. And we're just supposed to believe that exists because, women have an expiration date on screen, apparently.
You hit on something here that I think is a quintessential 80s thing where there's a phenomenon from the 80s where everyone who was like 28 or 31 looks like they're 45. In this movie, Bruno Kirby, basically anyone who's not Meg Ryan, looks like they're 45. And it was just a weird thing about living in the 80s that was a thing. But Meg Ryan looks like a child in this movie. And everyone else looks like they're 10 years from retirement. And
I was going to say the same because I didn't know the 10-year age gap because of how older people looked in the 80s in general. I just thought Billy Crystal was an older looking young guy, but that does make sense.
That's why I looked it up. And actually, earlier today, someone posted a picture of Kelsey Grammer from like 1984 or whenever Cheers started.
It's like 28 or something.
And he was like 27, 28. The response was, that is a hard 28. Because he looks like he's crazy. 45. He's bald. He does not look... I looked like a baby when I was 28. But this man looks like he has seen some shit.
Well, I mean, look no further than Bruno Kirby in this movie. He is a guy who has looked 50 for 40 years.
It's the mustache.
It's the mustache, 100%.
He has looked the same age since I was 10. It's insane.
How old was Bruno Kirby in that movie?
I think he was 40 because I looked that up too because he had died pretty young. I remember in the early 2000s in his 50s. But he, like to Cameron's point, he always kind of played grizzled dad in a lot of movies, and he just seemed like 45 to 50-year-old dad all through our memory of his existence.
He has big dad energy, and so then he'll always be a 40-something in our hearts and minds. I did think the film did a pretty good job, all things considered, of jumping through time and aging them down earlier in the film. Obviously, Billy Crystal is a little less effective, but Meg Ryan legitimately looks like a college student in the beginning of the film.
Agreed.
The way they dress her, do her makeup and her hair. I thought her transition through the film was very believable at each of those ages, and also how she carries herself as a performer. And Billy Crystal was obviously a more challenging task to do that with, but I thought it did a pretty good job. And also the characterization of his kind of cockiness as a college student, but that is also trying to be edgy and talking about death. And then later on in life is a cocky businessman who's overly confident, but maybe doesn't carry that same sort of doom in him. Yeah, I thought, all things considered, as we're talking about age, that it was done pretty well.
I think Crystal made it work performance-wise, but Billy Crystal pretending to be a college student is right up there with Michael C. Hall playing young Dexter.
The wig, the hair was bad.
Or the backward hat.
And Steve Buscemi in Not Another Teen Movie. It's just like, those are like the Mount Rushmore of ridiculous.
Brad named it. Young Jigsaw might be the most egregious one I've seen in modern times.
Put him in a hoodie and a backwards hat.
A lot of times you just push their hair down in their faces like bangs. That's usually the go-to. But yeah, the old man.
Look, if AI is going to be good for anything, it's the solving this problem. We don't need a world where 40-year-old Billy Crystal is playing an 18-year-old with like a mop haircut. No, thank you. Yeah. Hard pass.
He had sideburns. I believe he was in college. But yeah, you mentioned him. You felt like he was kind of miscast, but I feel like because the dialogue was so ripped from he and Reiner's exchanges, like Nora Ephron, when she'd met with Reiner to kind of get this movie started, it was about a different movie that fell apart. And then, he had gone through a recent divorce with Penny Marshall, so it becomes a whole thing where he wants to do a movie about the dating game and the whole thing and the single life. And I don't know if you guys read this as well. This might have been on the wiki as well, but at some point the script had an open ending where they did not get together. But luckily for Reiner, he found the future love of his life and his future wife, Michelle, while filming this, and everything changed, including, like you said, probably those vignettes became a part of it too.
Changes the entire sentiment of the movie, I think, but I could definitely see it working both ways. It just leaves you with kind of maybe a different taste in your mouth at the end. And Billy Crystal is also very charming in it, going back to you saying that he might be miscast. And
it's more of a looks thing.
He's not super attractive man, right? But he is so charming because he's really funny and kind of has this good energy about him. So I could definitely see a lot of women being attracted to him once they got to know him.
I think he's great. I just think it's one of those things where you look back in retrospect, and for the last 25 years, this movie is made with Brad Pitt and Glenn Powell. And, you just, a guy like Billy Crystal isn't a romantic comedy star in the world past the 1994. It's not a slight on Billy Crystal. I think Billy Crystal's great. I think he is charismatic in this movie, and he is good enough to where you forget that. But it's just, he's such a relic of a bygone era, for lack of a better term, that it just feels weird watching it from the year 2026. But I mean, see also Albert Brooks. There's a few of these guys who they just wouldn't be the same guy now.
I think it would be Timothy Chalamet now, and they would age him up. That's mine. And I think in 20 years people are gonna say, why did we think Timothy Chalamet was so attractive?
I think in 20 years people will still think Timothy Chalamet is so attractive.
We'll see. We'll make a pact. We'll come back in 20 years.
Yeah, let's do it. Sean, mark it on the calendar. In 20 years, we're going to come back and we're going to check on Timmy, because I am a believer in Timmy Mania.
Yeah, I mean, with hair, it's another thing. When he's got hair on his head, it's a whole different animal. But like his Marty Supreme guy, I'm with Becky. He just looks like if he wasn't famous, you'd be like, who's this little beanpole man?
He's got what the kids today call Riz, Sean. He's got what the kids today call Riz.
You'll learn about that one day, because even in The Holiday, Jack Black was a convincing leading man because he had charm. It's not his typical role, but you can believe it.
Jack
if a guy has humor or charm or both,
I would date Jack Black. Come on.
Whoa, Brad, come on.
I mean, if I wasn't obviously with Brad.
Oh, okay. I would date Jack Black too. It's okay.
Whoa, Brad, Becky's right here. All right, sorry. That was my last.
Just have to settle for a throuple situation with Jack Black, I guess.
Just know that there are options for you.
The one thing that struck me watching this again was I've seen this a few times. I've quoted a few times over my life too. My wife knows it much better than me, but we definitely spill some lines. We'll get to lines later. But I like, to you guys' point about the time jumps. They make them make sense, and they kind of hide it in dialogue every once in a while. Like, it's been a couple months since I saw him, or it's been 5 years. They don't always have a lower third that tells you exactly the time jump. But noticing at this time, it's very sparse in characters. Like, there's really only the main two and their two friends, and everyone else has like a single scene, it feels like. But I'm a very big fan of how they brought their friends to try to get them to date, and they just could not be less interested in each other, but they immediately found a connection between them with Carrie Fisher and Bruno Kirby.
That scene got the biggest laugh for me in the entire movie, when they both pull the other aside and he's like, you know what, she's, just don't do it tonight, just wait, or whatever. They go through, both of them have that same conversation, they immediately drop in a cab together and leave. Was so funny.
There's a lot of stuff in that, like when they're early on in the movie, when they're in bed talking on the phone, and it's a split screen. Mm-hmm. One thing I remarked to Becky is how it took me a couple seconds to look at it and be like, oh, this is actually a split screen, because the way the shot's composed, it's done so well at making it look like it's almost like a seamless shot.
Oh, it is, definitely. And then later in the film, it does kind of a quadruple screen. Yep. I don't know what you call it, with four, with them and the two friends as well. So that was one of the funniest scenes for me, was just introducing the dynamic of all four of them. And you got to see all four of these great actors kind of playing with the scene, having great chemistry with each other. To me, that was one of the best comedic bits, and also one of the best uses of split screen since Carrie.
100%. And I would argue that the movie, it's funny, when the movie is just Harry and Sally, it's definitely more of a romance movie and a little more of a serious movie. And it's when, Jess and Marie, Carrie Fisher and Bruno Kirby, come in that it becomes a little more of a comedy. And like, I think the funniest stuff in the movie were, the scene we just talked about and the scene where they're arguing over the table, the anchor table.
The wagon wheel.
The wagon wheel.
When they're at the batting cages, you made a woman meow.
Yeah, or the baby fish mouth. The whole baby fish mouth.
All the stuff we quote all the time is that entire Pictionary scene. Draw something resembling anything.
Stuff in the movie is when it's the whole group, which I think is really interesting.
Well, that makes sense. Just if we think about our lives, right? When are we laughing and having a lot of fun? They're friends for a reason. And one of the things that gets me in movies is when you have friend groups and you can tell that some writer was just putting these sort of characters together, but never thought about why they are friends. And it makes no sense for this group of people to be together. In this, it felt very organic and natural. You can see why they're all friends with each other. None of them are perfect people. They all have plenty of flaws and can be jerks sometimes. But you see them they relate in ways where you're like, oh yeah, they're totally friends. I believe it.
I love the running gag of Carrie Fisher dating the married man and continually bringing up that he's never going to leave his wife, and Meg Ryan getting more and more annoyed every time it happens is so good. Yeah, like this stuff, for as good as it is when just Harry and Sally are together, it's a different kind of good when the four of them are together. And I think the movie really shines, especially comedically, when it's all four of them. And you're seeing the two friends so in love, and what that's doing to the other two is just, it's the best stuff, I think, of the movie is when they're all four together.
Because have we all had friends where you're like, you see them kind of dancing around a relationship and you're like, oh my God, just get together already.
Yes.
Yep.
This is like that to an extreme degree.
100%. This movie is definitely that thing where it's like, what everyone else in the world should be doing romantically. You just have no idea what you're doing yourself. And this movie hits on that so well, where like everyone has great plans for everyone else in the movie. And it's just like, but they can't get out of their own way. And I love that. That's a thing that everyone feels in life and is so well portrayed in this movie.
Right. And a lot of it about like just the idea of relationships and having trouble getting over that hurdle about the ideas we have for ourselves, maybe things we hoped and dreamed as a kid and how we saw ourselves, and then having to confront the reality that our life is not that. It's kind of a disillusionment, which can kind of make you turn inward and not really believe in love or not really willing to accept what's right in front of you. And I think it's a very beautiful way of kind of showcasing that we have to take a lot of different turns in life sometimes to get to where we're supposed to be.
Well, it's also so much of relationships and falling in love and all of that stuff is about timing, and about like people aren't always, not to get too far into, but I've never really totally understood marriage from the sense that people are just so different when they're 18 and when they're 40 and when they're 70 that it's just like, it's weird to think that people would be copacetic all the time forever. And I know that is like shitting on love, but this movie does a good job of taking that premise of like, they aren't in a place in their lives where they make sense until they are. And I think that's a really interesting conceit for a rom-com. And I think definitely matches real life much more than some of the storybook Cinderella type rom-coms that exist. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you're lucky if you do grow together in the same direction for decades. I think that's why the marriage rate is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe, look, nobody wants to hear it, but like, I think maybe people weren't supposed to be together all the time forever from the beginning to the end. Like, maybe that's not a thing. And like, or maybe it is, like, it works for some people too. But I think like that being the default is just kind of, I know that's like big 18-year-old Harry energy for me to say that, but I do think this movie posits that question in a really interesting way that not a lot of movies, especially rom-com movies, do.
Sounds like you're proposing a Logan's Run style trial period. You can't marry till 30. Instead of dying at 30, you can...
I mean,
you have to like wait. You have to do that. I mean, there's been jokes about this before that people should have to like live together for a little while before they commit and all that stuff to make.
I think people who get married when they've never lived together are psychopaths, and they will be divorced. They will be divorced 30 to 60 days after they move in together. Never works. If you haven't lived with someone, you don't know them. Period.
sometimes you still don't. So you live with them for a few years.
That's true. I mean, Harry thought he knew Helen, and it turns out Helen, fell in love with a tax accountant or whatever he was.
Speaking of single scene people in the movie,
there should be an Oscar for single scene performances, and I think she is incredible in that scene. She's so good in that.
Do you guys recognize that actress by chance?
No,
I looked her up, but I didn't recognize her.
Oh, you don't even know. You don't know. So Harley Jane Kozak, who plays Helen, was an icon in the 80s. She was, in real movies like Parenthood and Arachnophobia, but she also played the teacher in Necessary Roughness, the Scott Bakula Sinbad Jason Bateman football movie, which is a lost classic. And also she is in a largely forgotten classic called Side Out about beach volleyball.
I knew you were going to mention that movie.
Starring Peter Horton, C. Thomas Howell, and Courtney Thorne Smith. Fun story. I thought C. Thomas Howell was Peter Horton for a very long time, because I knew C. Thomas Howell mostly from Side Out, which was a movie that as a child I watched on HBO maybe 7,000 times.
Back when they made a niche sports movie for every sport in the 80s, no matter how extreme the sport was.
I can't believe we didn't recognize her.
I just brought it up because the Godwin's Law of Cameron is bringing up Side Out somehow all the time.
I think she was in one of those sorority massacre movies too, by the way, Becky. So you should know her too.
House on Sorority Row.
Yeah. She was a big deal in the 80s.
She was Steve Martin's wife in Parenthood, which, Becky, have you seen Parenthood?
I'm not sure. I don't think I have.
Parenthood is excellent. Love that movie.
It's good in kind of the same way this movie's good. It's like a warm blanket kind of movie.
And the cast is amazing.
She's also in the Amy Fisher story, the TV movie. So.
Well, it got rough for her in the mid to late 90s, and she wasn't doing as well.
Speaking of single scene people who, again, have a big effect on the cynicism of our leads, like, when they see their exes. But Joe is randomly the son of the former president, Gerald Ford. I did not know that.
What?
He's popped around he's popped around in movies. And I said that to Alicia out loud, and she goes, "Yeah, he looks like him." I'm like, "Oh, okay, it kind of does."
He does. I would have never put that together. I had no idea that was a thing until right now. But
he comes around once in a while and plays like a general in a quick scene in a movie here and there. But yeah, Gerald Ford's son was her.
He was in Starship Troopers.
Yep, showing up as some kind of general.
He's been in a lot. Holy crap.
The other thing I didn't know about Nora Ephron, other than, she had written, as a screenwriter, Silkwood and Heartburn, the Mike Nichols movies, and then went on to do Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail, as well as that Travolta movie, Michael, where he's the angel. But I did not know that she was a former spouse of Carl Bernstein, as of Woodward and Bernstein. And she rewrote a draft of All the President's Men with Bernstein himself. And that was not the version that was used for the final film. I think Woodward's version was used, but that script got passed around Hollywood, and it led to her actually getting these future screenwriting gigs. That's sort of how she got on the scene, was by co-writing a version of All the President's Men.
Whoa.
That's wild. I had no idea. I also love that back in 1988 or 89, when did this come out? 89, was it?
Yes.
It was made in 88. I love that you could be nominated for Best Original Screenplay for a movie like this. I feel like that is never going to happen again. It was just a completely different time that something like this could. I mean, very deserving and one of the great, rom-com screenplays of all time, but just not a movie that anyone would consider an Oscar movie, and also was not super well received critically. So it's kind of wild that this got a screenplay nomination.
Yeah,
I'm kind of here for it.
Oscar nom.
I'm here for it.
You guys want to hear the 4 movies it was up against?
I would love that.
Yeah.
Woody Allen's Crimes and Misdemeanors, Soderbergh's Sex, Lies, and Videotape, Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, and the winner, Tom Schulman's Dead Poets Society.
Oh, that was a competitive year.
Good year, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of those things where they're going to look back and wish they'd given it to Spike, but Dead Poets Society is pretty great.
Are there any modern rom-coms, and when I say modern, let's say last 20 years or so, that might have been or should have been, in your eyes, considered for like a best original screenplay?
I was going to bring up, it's more romantic drama, but there's a lot of parallels in this with Past Lives, which was nominated for Best Original Screenplay, and it's a phenomenal film about romance, and also looking at it at a way of like the theme of like just meeting people at the right time in your life. That is what Past Lives is 100% about. It's not quite a funny movie, but the themes are similar, and it's a fantastic film. So at least that was nominated for a screenplay.
There's some more comedy leaning, like, Apatow type rom-com adjacent movies, like a Forgetting Sarah Marshall or, Knocked Up, that I think in a cooler world could have been given those kinds of, original screenplay type nominations. Not that I ever thought that would happen, but I don't know that there's like a straight rom-com that I think is worthy of that, but I'm also not the biggest
Silver Linings Playbook might be the most recent one I can remember that did get an Oscar nom.
Yes.
Right?
Well, there's a bunch of the Woody Allen stuff and not Mel Brooks, the Albert Brooks.
Yeah, he was there was a time into the 90s and 2000s.
There was a time when a lot of stuff like this
but this was the heyday of that, like Moonstruck and others. I remember in the 80s, like this was a bigger time for that. I mean, they were also throwbacks to the 50s and 60s kind of screwball stuff, which would get nominated all the time. But yeah, it definitely kind of hit a lull in the 90s.
Well, the rom-com was considered basically dead. I mean, the I can't remember the name of it, but the movie with Sydney Sweeney and
Anyone But You.
Anyone But You kind of jump-started the rom-com again. Like we had like a decade where they weren't really hitting at all.
That one was actually fairly well received, right?
It was good. I liked it quite a bit. They had great chemistry together. It was fun. Also, there was the Jennifer Lawrence one with the younger kid that the parents hired her. I thought that one
was so
that one
funny.
Was more raunchy than most rom-coms, but it was really good. Yeah.
That's kind of where everything went. Speaking of the 90s, that was when, American Pie and Something About Mary and all those, they started to veer toward more of that till Apatow's stuff came back in a little more earnestness, maybe.
One of the things Brad and I were talking about when we watched When Harry Met Sally is, to your point, Cameron, that it felt like romantic comedies kind of aren't being released, at least theatrically now. We do get a lot of them that go straight to streaming, but having a really solid director and really solid cast make a movie that is for adults and not a 4-quadrant film is just something that we've lost. And it's not just rom-coms, it's a lot of other more like adult thrillers and things like that aren't being made because they're not 100 million plus box office guaranteed. So, there's less risks being taken in that regard. And one of the things that struck me while watching When Harry Met Sally was, oh man, I really miss having more films like this with such a talented cast and crew that probably, at least for the time, had a decent budget and was aimed at a full theatrical release, with all the bells and whistles that comes with. So yeah, it's nice to see those. We don't have as many anymore. You can find them. You can find anything now. There's so many films out there and they're all going to streaming, but
I think the rom-dram is like a romantic dramedies are kind of going through a moment right now with like Colleen Hoover movies and some of those, and there's a lot of like straight to Amazon Prime and straight to Netflix stuff. I think that is the romantic dramedies have kind of taken over for the romantic comedies in a lot of ways.
I haven't seen it, but isn't Nora? Doesn't that fall into that category?
It's more of a romantic dramedy.
Okay.
Ish. It dances around that.
It's also kind of feels almost like a crime movie at times too. It's an odd one.
Well, there's not a ton of romantic is maybe a stretch for Nora. Like both of them are kind of they're just kind of going through the motions and they're in it kind of for themselves. And so
I would say it's more like a character piece on her more than it is even that. But it's worth a watch. I don't know if you've seen Rocket or anything that guy's done before. Be curious to hear Brad's take on that movie because Brad does have interesting takes on some movies. Let me tell you. I also want to know: do you think the Hallmark movie and the Hallmark Christmas movie sort of ate a big chunk of what we would have gotten otherwise? Like that's such a cottage industry now of those type of movies that maybe and there are Netflix rom-coms. They do show up here and there, but I do think a lot of like those Mar Vista movies maybe cannibalized the genre a little bit.
I feel like those, and I've seen maybe like 2 of them. I think we try to watch Hot Frosty.
You've seen them all, dude.
all of them.
No one believes you, Brad. No one believes you.
No, I'm saying you've seen them all. Have you seen 2? I was saying as a joke, like they're so derivative.
Well, that's the point. They all follow a template. And they're, just kind of like churn them out as much as you can. And I know a lot of screenwriters and filmmakers in general will often get their start working on those movies. There's, I can't recall who it is. He spent a decade working in that industry. And then he came out with a horror film recently that was the guy who did Anything for Jackson.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I do remember hearing that. Well, he's a Canadian filmmaker, and these Hallmark movies are made a bunch in Canada, so that does track. But I do getting back to Shawn's point, I do agree that like Hallmark kind of swallowed it because really what happened was the romantic comedy became templatized in a way that Becky kind of hit on. And it just felt like we were just putting different skins on the same movie. And I think people just most people got bored with it. And the people that didn't and were still there, I think just kind of went to Hallmark and were just like, yeah, just give me the same thing over and over again. Great. And also the changing landscape of theatrical. Like it's just that whole genre just kind of went away for a long time. And, every once in a while, a ginormous star will get something and it'll kickstart it for a minute. Like I know that Clooney and Julia Roberts had one, something about Paradise a couple of years ago that did decently well. But yeah, it's just a tough genre. I think I mean, we're all horror junkies first and foremost. And like the slasher movie fell into a similar thing where they got to be so cookie cutter that people got bored with them. And now to make them work well, you have to be like slasher plus or rom-com plus. You have to, you can't just make a generic rom-com. You have to take it and deconstruct it.
You gotta elevate it. You gotta
elevate it. You gotta elevate that horror, right, Becky?
Let's not get down that. But I actually think we're coming back around away from that. I think people are now getting tired of like meta, cynical takes on things and just want a straightforward slasher. They just want a straightforward rom-com. Yeah. They want those feel-good sort of escapist things. And yes, all genres follow a template. That's why they're in a genre, right? Because they hit these certain beats and that gives them a flavor, right? Because genre stands for like generic, right? It's a generic convention. So of course they're all going to have somewhat of a template. And, we're looking for things every now and then to keep that template fresh, of course. But there's something very comforting about a template. Yeah. You know what to expect from it. And, it's why people really like McDonald's, right? We know it's not good for us. We know it's not high quality craft food, but you know exactly how that Big Mac is going to taste. And it's going to taste the same at every single McDonald's. And I think that's why people return, right, to genres, even with like stereotypical templatized films, because they want to recreate that experience that they've come to know, comfort watches.
Westerns on down did that. It's conventional. Then you have a few deconstructions of the genre with like Peckinpah and Kurosawa, and then they go back to the earnest template again. And then another decade goes and they deconstruct it. Same things happen with some superhero movies. You get Watchmen and those kind of things. Then they fall back into earnestness again. It's all a cycle, and horror is no different. But yeah, I do want to recommend one thing. Speaking of how Cameron's brain, before I forget it, if none of you have seen this, I will always talk this movie up. It's never really readily streaming, unfortunately, but it's Jason Sudeikis and Alison Brie. And I always called this movie R-rated Harry Met Sally. And that I just found out Harry Met Sally is also R-rated. It had more F-bombs than I remember.
When it dropped the second F-bomb, I was like, wait, is this not?
I said the same to my wife, and I go, wait, is this another thing where we watched it on Turner Networks growing up and forgot it's got words and nudity and things? That's what happened with Coming to America and 16 Candles and movies like that. My wife had no idea Coming to America was a raunchy R-rated movie until we watched it on DVD one day. She's like, what the hell is this movie? But yeah, there's a movie called Sleeping with Other People, and it is very much I don't want to say apatow, just it's a raunchier version of this movie, but it is worth a while, I think, if you can seek it out if you've never seen it.
I remember hearing good things about it. I never saw it, though. I'll have to
remember it feeling a lot like this.
I love
it does feel earned. Yeah.
I have not seen it either, but I am aware of its existence.
Yeah, can we talk about the really pressing thing that needs to be discussed here, Shawn? Apropos of nothing, can we talk about that Harry spitting his grapeseed at an unrolled window of a woman he just met is absolute lunatic behavior?
I do love how almost immediately, though, he's like, I'll roll that down.
Yeah, just like an absolute nightmare lunatic. I would have been like, get the fuck out of my car. What is going on here? That is insanity. People did that in the 80s?
He thought the window was down. 70s? I mean, it seemed clear that he thought the window was down. It's not like he did it.
He just got in the car. There's no way he could think the window was down.
Well, it could have been down before he got in, I guess. She had both windows down, maybe. I don't know. I think it was like, I'm with Shawn. I don't think it was intentional. I think it was like he wasn't thinking, and it's part of his character that he just kind of flies by the seat of his pants and isn't super considerate about his surroundings.
I immediately thought he was a serial killer.
I mean, he might have been. Yeah, that was before Harry Met Sally.
That's before Harry
Met Sally. That's the prequel that needs to be written.
Becky, why have you not written
that? Abraham Lincoln. Sally. It's like the new version of Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer. We take these like classic films, but then add the horror element to it. Oh, wait, somebody's already doing that. Never mind. Like It's a Wonderful Knife and that stuff.
I mean, anyway. Before Harry Met, like, it is insane to me that we live in a world where the movie Before Harry Met Sally has not been made. Like, there is gold in that title alone. $50 million at the box office.
I was shocked at the running time of this movie, which I know made these two horror fans happy probably when they saw it, that it was 96 minutes. Because in my brain, I was like, it's probably closer to an hour 50 if I was guessing. But nowadays, we would get extensive backstory flashbacks, unfortunately. There'd be weird notes from the studio like, can we see more of him when he was a serial killer? And how he learned to love grapes in the first sequence for no reason.
Also, grapes are such a weird thing to eat in a car. Just everything about that first 5 minutes.
Back on the grapes.
No, it was like everything about that first 5 minutes. I was just like, what are we watching? Like, I do not.
Almost lost Cameron with the big purple grapes.
I mean, you make the whole movie about how. Sorry, go ahead, Becky.
I was just going to ask, how many servings of fruit does Cameron eat in a day? And I bet you it's very little.
Well, Becky, I'm still mad at you because you know I'm trying to eat healthy, and you just spent 5 minutes talking about McDonald's. So we're not in a good place, you and I. But I eat a little bit of fruit. I eat more vegetables than fruit, if I'm being honest, and I don't eat a ton of vegetables. So you can deduce how much fruit gets eaten. But I eat a lot of McDonald's. But I'm trying real hard to cut back on that. I can see a McDonald's from my balcony of my apartment. So it's a struggle. It is a struggle.
Before Harry Met Sally actually became a movie. I mean, early on in the movie, he talks about death and darkness and all that. So it's everything that's leading up to his attitude towards death and darkness. And it's all the shit that ends up happening to him that is terrible, that makes him a terrible person.
Yeah, it's like a coming of age. It's like a coming of age movie for Billy Crystal's character.
There you go.
I would see that. Yeah. Who wouldn't?
You guys keep talking about a pre-Harry Met Sally. The post-Harry Met Sally, which Reiner teased in this movie, was one of the books he's seen reading, was in fact Misery, which he was already, I guess, starting to develop.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. I noticed that in there, but I didn't realize. I thought I was like, was that coincidence or was he already on board? But it sounds like he
came out within a year and a half of this, so I'm guessing he had already had it in his brain that he was doing it, and maybe got approval from King to do it.
We also see him read that Robert Ludlum novel, and I bet there's a pretty good chance that was another project that either Castle Rock or Reiner himself were trying to get up and running at the time, and it maybe just fell apart.
Yeah.
But
Ludlum did okay because they made many Jason Bourne movies based on his other famous series. I don't remember what the book was he was reading in it, but it was not a Bourne movie or a Bourne novel.
No. Are we going to try? Should we talk a little bit about Rob Reiner? I know we've been dancing around it, but it's kind of a bummer.
I can tell you that just yesterday, I remembered that he has an active storyline going on The Bear, and I got sad and angry all over again about it because he showed up this last season with a little side story, and that is going to be left hanging now.
I had completely forgotten about that. Now that bums me out as well. But that's.
I didn't finish New Girl, but he was delightful. People forget how good he was on screen too, like just little parts in Wolf of Wall Street and stuff like that. But he and Jamie Lee Curtis as the family, the parents of Jess on New Girl, were always a delightful thing to show up on that show.
Yeah, everyone remembers Reiner as a director, and rightfully so, because as has been talked about many times, he's made amazing movies like Stand By Me and This Is Spinal Tap and Princess Bride and Misery and A Few Good Men and American President. Yada yada yada. There's a bunch of them. But people don't really talk as much about how good of an actor he was, and also just how good of an orator he was. He was just one of those people that when he talked, people just stopped and started listening.
Oh, he had an interview just a couple weeks before he died, too, and I think it was promoting the new Spinal Tap, which I've still not watched, but he said, I'm going to be remembered as Meathead. First thing in the obituary is Meathead, and to his credit, everybody was like, this man made one of the greatest runs of movies as a director. They did not say Meathead first. So, good for him. And honestly, we talked about this, like, how you could change, like, 5 words in the script and it would work as a modern script. Like, these movies hold up. Like, Spinal Tap is still funny. Stand By Me is incredibly good as a coming-of-age movie. Princess Bride's an all-timer. A Few Good Men, that, like, launched Aaron Sorkin into the stratosphere. The American President, underrated. I rewatched.
What about Misery, Sean? You skipped Misery. Why is that?
Brad and I haven't seen Misery.
How dare you?
Look around on the dial for another episode of Late to the Party.
We're going to solve this problem next month, people. It's going to be okay. We're going to make him watch it.
Then he really broke out and made North.
Man, that is the duddiest of duds in the middle of that of a good career otherwise. One other notable crew member we got to mention. Well, one, this was Harry Connick's first ever soundtrack in film work, and he went on to do plenty more, including acting. But
he got his first Grammy for the soundtrack of
this. The DP of this movie was none other than Barry Sonnenfeld, whose director of photography credits include a couple of Coen Brothers movies, a handful of them. He also did Big. He did Throw Mama from the Train with Crystal. He ended up directing movies himself, like Get Shorty, the Men in Black trilogy, the Addams Family movie. So Sonnenfeld doing a good job here. Lindsay, New York, which every once in a while felt a little emptier than I was expecting, but New York's definitely this might be an underrated New York movie, as New York being a character.
You know what was it's such a throwaway scene, but such great writing is like setups and payoffs, is the scene when everything goes to shit and then it's Christmas again and she doesn't have anybody to carry the tree with her. And I was just like, wow, that's such economical, smart writing that otherwise seemed like complete throwaway scenes. Watching her try to carry that tree by herself was so good. It was just such a perfectly written scene.
That scene came up, Becky and I started laughing, and Becky's like, why didn't she just drag it?
Well, she got there.
She did get there eventually.
You realized, drag it by the stump eventually.
Yeah. There was one moment, I think it was Central Park that they were walking. You didn't really get a good sense of the surroundings, but there is a particular moment where they're walking through a park and it has the most beautiful sort of coral fall trees in the background. And I was like, oh, I want to be there. Yeah. And Brad was like, I miss New York. We want to go. Let's go visit again. So to that point, I think the way it was shot, really, it's a pretty simple movie, I think, in terms of all things considered with cinematography, but it's simplicity done well that evokes just the right sentiment and feeling at, so many different times. I also think there's some brilliant composition throughout. And sometimes it's just the way, in combination with the shot design, the direction, and the editing, that it doesn't ever get too showy, and it really pulls your attention to the actors, the dialogue. And that can be kind of a lost art when in kind of big theatrical releases at times. I think one scene I really think about was the football, when they're at the football game and they're doing the wave, and just the dialogue back and forth is really witty. And then it's punctuated by the fact that, every 30 seconds or so they have to get up and do the wave. Meanwhile, he's talking about the start of his divorce and breaking up. And it's just the juxtaposition of that and kind of the simplicity with the composition of the shot. It nails the comedy and it nails kind of the whole vibe of the film.
To circle that back to Reiner, he doesn't have like this one showy thing that's like, oh, that's a Rob Reiner movie. And I don't know if like that's a knock, because some film nerds think you have to have some type of trademark like Wes Anderson and Tarantino, different people in certain shots. But again, the fact that we just named all these movies and how much they all still hold up, the fact that he could do that, he was smart to get good chemistry actors. He was smart to get airtight scripts from the likes of Sorkin and the likes of Ephron. That is a testament to his directing. All these films are so competently made, like you said, simplistic but beautiful. Like they're so, like I said, airtight, maybe for lack of a better word, is just how much all of them hold up. I just think that's a credit to him, even though he may not have had a sheen that was like Rob Reiner, where you look at a movie and go, oh, that's a Rob Reiner movie. I would say quality times 10 movies is a Rob Reiner trademark. He made incredibly good movies.
But and it's like you said with Wes Anderson, I mean, because think of every person who has a quote unquote style, he has style squared, just because it's so obvious.
Right.
You either vibe with it or you don't. It's like, oh, I don't like Wes Anderson movies, because a lot of his movies all kind of follow, they're all different, but they all are all very clearly him. Whereas Reiner is a movie maker through and through, where he could take any script, North notwithstanding, and he didn't put a mark on it. He just made an amazing movie. Does that make sense? I'm probably
You said the same thing I said, with just more eloquently. Like he was.
Well, I always say that a great director serves the story, so they will do what they need to do to best tell that story. And you can be an auteur like a Wes Anderson, and it doesn't mean you're not great at telling stories, but you can't hand Wes Anderson any script. I don't think he could do them all in a way that Rob Reiner could, where he can translate it to a broader audience, because he can morph and change to serve the story, as opposed to people that have very, very specific vision and they're kind of can't really go outside of those parameters, or then it kind of doesn't make sense or doesn't mesh well.
He seems like a throwback in that regard. Like in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, most of the best directors were that. The Michael Curtizes and the John Fords and the Howard Hawks were people that could make any kind of
Billy Wilder.
The Billy Wilder,
between 100%. Drama and comedy, yeah.
And the 70s kind of was the first time we saw directors show up and put like their own stamp on every single movie, where it feels like a Scorsese movie or a Spielberg movie. And it's gotten more and more like that as the years go by, where so many of the most highly talked about directors are people you could watch 5 minutes of a movie and be like, oh, this is a Tarantino movie, or like. But I do feel like Reiner is such a throwback from a forgotten era, where it was just like, he's just really great at the craft of directing, and it doesn't matter much what you give him, he'll just turn out a great movie. Kind of like James Mangold is kind of the version of that today, where he does a bunch of different stuff in a bunch of different genres, and it's just all really good. Maybe not to the level of Rob Reiner, but there's still a few. But yeah, it's definitely a kind of a forgotten art of being able to kind of an everyman director who can make every genre.
One that, not obviously modern, but Bob Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Two of the great Christmas movies of all time.
And nothing 100%. Like each other. Exactly.
Yeah.
Just like Reiner's first 6 or 7, nothing like each other, but all classics of their kind of respective genres. Before we jump to some of the last stuff, like some quotes and things, that we want to talk about the cast one more time. Neither of these were the first choices, funny enough. As much as Crystal was instrumental with Reiner in the dialogue with Ephron, they reached out to every 80s leading man, basically, from Tom Hanks to Richard Dreyfuss to Albert Brooks, as we'd mentioned, who Brooks was on record as saying he turned it down because it felt a little reminiscent of Woody Allen, and I can kind of see that. Plus, Brooks himself made this movie in a way. He made Modern Romance and similar type of movies, but I still think this is the right one. I wouldn't want to see Tom Hanks in this. He would have played it very differently, and I've seen him play against Ryan now a couple other movies. I do like Crystal in the role, but Meg Ryan, Reiner himself wanted Susan Day to play Sally, and when she turned it down, they approached people like Elizabeth Perkins, Molly Ringwald, and I'm glad that didn't happen. I've never been a big fan. But no, Ringwald herself was, she declined it, but she would actually later play the character in a stage version of this on London's West End.
Wasn't Ringwald
sure if it ever made it to America.
Wasn't Ringwald even younger than Meg Ryan?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, if she was 10 years junior of him at the time, I mean, she was older playing high school in the mid 80s, so this was 88 by the time.
Albert Brooks and Molly Ringwald would have been a tough watch. That's a real Lolita vibe going on there that I'm not sure we're ready for.
Yeah. Molly Ringwald is 7 years younger than Meg Ryan, so.
Yeah, that's.
That wouldn't have.
She would have been 20.
They'd have had to age her up over and over as the movie went on.
She would have been about 20 when they shot it, so.
But yeah, Meg Ryan herself was, she lobbied very hard for the part, kind of wanted to prove herself in a lead role, because to date, she'd just been side player in things like Top Gun and stuff, so good for her, because she did become the it girl for rom-coms for a decade.
Yeah, it really defined her career.
Yeah, she played this character or some version of this character in a lot of stuff moving forward. And she became kind of the go-to, the biggest star in rom-coms and romantic movies for 20 years, really. So she really blew up from this and became the Nora Ephron stand-in lead and just cashed checks from it, like for a good long time. And a very, very underappreciated actress. I think even in this, she's not just there being cute. I think Becky pointed out that her and when she's a college student and her, like every time she jumped, that you felt like that was a different person at a different point in their life. And I think that's credit to Meg Ryan being a really good actress. I also think we talked a little bit about Bruno Kirby, but he had someone that had previously worked with Rob Reiner on Spinal Tap, and this movie gave him a bit of a big break, and he went on to make Good Morning Vietnam. I loved him in The Basketball Diaries, and he also did City Slickers with Billy Crystal a few years later. Yeah.
But he was not in City Slickers 2. I never did look up why that was, because John Lovitz replaces him as his brother, I believe, in the story, or maybe it's Billy Crystal's brother. Oh,
I did. I actually saw why he wasn't in it, and I think it had to do with something involving the horses. Like he didn't want to ride the horses, or
I mean, he was a curmudgeon in real life.
He was a 50-year-old man, so
maybe he got hurt on a horse or something.
Yeah, he was strongly allergic to horses and needed daily allergy shots.
Oh, that would be rough.
Sorry, Bruno. Sorry.
Good for him for getting through that first one, man. What a trooper.
Yeah, actually, during When Harry Met Sally, when we were watching it, Brad turned to me and was like, "You've seen City Slickers, right?" Yes, I've seen City Slickers. I love that movie. It was very much on kind of repeat, one of our frequent childhood watches in my house.
Yeah.
And that's what I think of when I think of Bruno Kirby.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do.
And Good Morning Vietnam a little bit too.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I remember him being hard.
Crystal adopts a cow.
That's in part 2, right? Norman becomes his pet in part 2.
Yeah, and he goes jogging with it.
I think I saw part 2 one time.
I don't think that's legal, but
I've seen part 1 a Becky amount of times. I've seen part 2 a You Guys Harry Met Sally amount of times.
So, Shawn, we've talked about all the famous actors in the movie except one, who has one of probably the most famous, maybe the most famous line in the history of film, truthfully, up there. That was the woman in the diner who says, "I'll have what she's having," was Rob Reiner's mom, Estelle. So good for her he made her an absolute legend of the silver screen.
We'll talk accolades on the back half as far as box office and nominations and stuff, but that was the 33rd most famous 100 years, 100 movie quotes per AFI.
That tracks.
That answers your question, 33rd.
Did you guys have a favorite line or a line reading that you really liked?
I think the "you made her meow" one for
I was
me
going to say that too.
my favorite.
It's just
because
he
it
keeps telling
on.
us. He keeps telling a story, and he just keeps going back to it.
You can't let that part go.
Because it matched my reaction. Because I think I looked at Brad with like, meow. What does that mean? And then he kind of is stuck on that moment, and just it's the line delivery and the performance and everything that just it's chef's kiss, perfect.
And I think combined with anything that anytime Billy Crystal had a chance to give like really long pieces of dialogue, I think there was one when he was on the plane next to her, and I think on the moving sidewalk in the airport. It just he really flexed the cadence of his delivery.
Yeah.
Even something as simple as the tone of his voice, because he's got kind of that like higher pitched, maybe kind of shrill voice. There's something about it, the way combined obviously with Ephron's writing, it was just, I absolutely just love the way he delivered all of that.
Yeah, he's a real natural when it comes to just delivering. I mean, that comes from him being a stand-up comedian, obviously, but he's a real natural delivering like long chunks of dialogue. Shawn, did you have a favorite? Was there a line?
I made a note of a few here. Early on in their meeting, Sally says a few funny zingers back at him. She goes, "It's amazing. You look like a normal person, but you're actually the angel of death." And
that one was really good.
I think the follow-up meeting, she goes, "You were a human affront to all women, and I am a woman."
Yep.
So, because again, he would spill his guts, and she would come back at him. She would snap back at him a lot of times, to where he would apologize. To Becky's point about this movie being more progressive than even modern times, where men keep not apologizing.
Brad mentioned Billy Crystal has these sort of like long rants. Sometimes it's the way it's punctuated at the end that makes the rant so effective. Like that one on the moving walkway through the airport. I think he has this big thing, and then she just kind of looks at him. I said, "Goodbye." Yeah. And it's just the shortness and abruptness of it adds like the perfect exclamation point to the end of it.
I love that he just kept walking with her. He was like, "Okay, never mind, I'll stop." The one that really jumps out at me that I've always been a fan of, even in other viewings of this movie, because it's my favorite scene in the whole movie, when Crystal goes on, similar to what Brad was talking about, the big giant rant about divorce in front of Marie and Jess. When they're going through that, when he's going through that whole thing about how, then you'll never believe it, but you're going to fight for 2 hours about the wagon wheel coffee table and all this stuff. And then he just flips out and leaves. And when Marie looks at Jess, and Jesse just goes, "I want you to know that I'm never going to want to take that wagon wheel coffee table." It's such an amazing punctuation of the scene.
I will say to Becky's point, when he walks outside and continues ranting to her, it's the one time he's mean to her, and he immediately feels terrible and hugs her and says he's sorry.
Yeah.
Which again, so this movie's really more fantasy than rom-com. So, but going back to the other bits we were talking about, like my wife and I quote a few things. It's Mick Jagger is a baby fish mouth. Drop something resembling anything. She says baby fish mouth a lot. We say this one line a lot because we know many women like this. You're the worst kind. You're high maintenance, but you think you're low maintenance. I'm not going to name names, but we point that out about a few people we know.
It's Becky, isn't it?
No one on this call.
Oh, okay. Never
and
mind.
then, of course,
Brad laughed a little too knowingly.
Brad knew it from cultural osmosis, but his whole speech at the end, of course, is one of those all-timer kind of Bull Durham style love declarations.
That was parodied in an episode of Scrubs. I know that much.
Yes.
A lot of that was made up on the day. There was something written out, but a lot of that was Crystal just kind of free-flowing. So he improv that.
That's impressive, actually. I didn't realize that included some improv.
Yeah, like the crinkle of your nose and stuff like that. Like he actually improv that in the moment.
And then I love how it cuts right back to her, and then you very clearly see the little wrinkle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's like so what the hell's going on right now?
Before Botox, clearly.
Well.
Oh.
Sorry.
It's coming at Meg Ryan, America's sweetheart.
No, I wasn't coming at anybody. It's just another relic of the time, right?
Yeah.
Becky's a big Dennis Quaid fan. She's still mad that she ran around with him on Russell Crowe and did change the trajectory of her career.
Oh, man. Now Meg Ryan's catching strays from everybody.
Would anybody know the name of the movie Proof of Life if we're not for that love affair between them that caused the whole riff?
That's actually better than you think movie.
I like Proof of Life, and I had no idea about that when I had watched the movie.
Yeah, Shawn, you monster.
My bad.
gritty action dramas of that era. I think I saw them all.
Mm-hmm. So I'm glad you both took to this. I was not too worried, like I said, when Brad revealed that he does love a good Ephron rom-com. Like I said, this is sort of a proto one that maybe you could argue she honed as she got to. I just learned this year we rewatched You've Got Mail. I did not know it was a remake of Shop Around the Corner. I was very late to that information.
Which I also just found out is an adaptation of a stage play.
I have not seen the original. I think I added it to a watch list on HBO Max or something somewhere. Speaking of HBO Max, it just reminded me, I meant to put this in the notes, but it was very nice. I don't know if you guys watched it that way, but they put a remembrance to Rob and Michele Reiner at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, we call that. Yep. Yeah, we saw that.
Yeah, that was very nice.
Good job, HBO. You're not monsters.
Yeah. Although I did feel sad immediately.
I know it kind of put me in a somber mood for a few minutes.
Well, and then Billy Crystal spit a freaking pit right on a window like a fucking psychopath.
And Cameron had to take a break.
I was just like, this is all
smoke a pack of cigarettes outside.
I stormed off. It was insane.
He's a monster.
Yeah, multiple viewings for me over time, and it still holds up really, really well. And I think you guys, if you revisit it in a couple years, you'll find it to still be pretty charming, all things considered.
I think so too.
I want to show it to a Gen Zer and see if they know what a Rolodex is.
Oh yeah, there were a few things in there, the Rolodex being one of them, where it's just like, oh man, that's a bygone era.
Yep.
She Rolodexes her VHS tape collection, which we do that nowadays just on, Excel docs.
Yeah, but somehow it being on a Rolodex, it looks like stalker behavior, right? Yeah. When Carrie Fisher Marie has like the Rolodex of single men.
Yeah.
That is the weirdest.
Yeah, she has a Rolodex of single men and isn't dating any of them because she's dating.
And it's not updated because somebody in there is dead, as we learned.
And another guy had been married for a year.
If I was having lunch with somebody and a dude pulled that out, it's like binders full of women kind of a thing. That would not be okay.
Well, it's like the 80s version of the Little Black Book, right? That everyone used to talk about. Everybody's number, the Little Black Book. It was like the very 80s version of that. But I remember having a Rolodex. I'm old enough to remember having a Rolodex that I kept phone numbers on. Not of available men. Not of only available men. But yeah, I had one of those. It was a thing.
We had one. My parents had one growing up, so
all the business.
I knew what it was.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts from the two of you on this episode and this film?
Well, I told Brad we have to watch Sleepless in Seattle now. Since he loves You've Got Mail, he loved this. Undoubtedly, he will love that.
I don't think I've seen Sleepless in Seattle.
I've seen it the least of the three, and in my brain, it's the least of the three, in my opinion. But I do need to revisit it.
I remember Sleepless in Seattle being better than You've Got Mail.
I think it's better, but it is less fun and funny, but not in a bad way. It's just tonally different.
Which one was first?
You've Got Mail
Sleepless in Seattle was first.
Okay, and because the critics also said, like, oh, they're just redoing this again, and I think they were a little unkind to it, but I think time has been kind to You've Got Mail, strangely enough.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's intentionally very similar in a way. Like, I think everyone knew what they were doing. Granted, You've Got Mail is around the shop around the corner.
Yeah.
Is it the little shop or what? Yeah.
Little shop of horrors around the corner is the best mashup I've ever.
But if you were to watch Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail back to back, I think you'll see that the parallels and themes, it's like, an updated version of some of the manners of communication and media and all of that. So I consider them complementary films, not necessarily rehashings of each other. And I love that they both exist it almost feels like a shared universe, but not, since they're totally different characters.
They used to do that. It wasn't uncommon back in the 50s and 60s with those, we're talking about the screwball comedies. They'd have the same two leads, pop up again because the chemistry worked. So
yeah, and this made me want to watch some more rom-coms. I guess that's the other lasting effect of the film. And if Brad will tolerate it, I would love to show him It Happened One Night. Old Frank Capra film, which I think is really the originator of the rom-com template. So
that one, Philadelphia Story, there's a handful of everyone you see on those lists, those kind of iconic 4 or 5 ones like that, His Girl Friday and the like. But yeah, It Happened One Night in Philadelphia Story or two, and I would always tell people to go find. George Cukor, along with Capra, made a lot of those kind of movies.
You know which rom-com I've always had a real soft spot for is Crazy Stupid Love with Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, and Steve Carell. I just thought that was a really well-made rom-com with like really good actors.
I heard that was actually quite good.
I liked it quite a bit.
As we were struggling to come up with modern ones, that is one of the better modern ones because they're so few and far between, like we talked about.
I never did see it. The poster cover of it always made me want to avoid it with kind of the disembodied leg and Steve Carell looking up through it. But that's more to do with of its time marketing.
Yeah. No, it's better.
Else.
It's better than the poor poster. I agree with Cameron. It's a good one to seek out if you're jonesing for the genre.
Crazy Rich Asians was another big one recently.
Oh, that movie was great.
It's so good. Oh, and My Big Fat Greek Wedding, not as recent, but that was also like a later era rom-com.
All right, go forth and watch more rom-coms, starting with Sleepless in Seattle.
Sounds good.
But
Sounds
yes,
like a
we're so glad to have both
Brad?
of you. Yes.
Yeah, no, I want to watch it. Let's watch it.
Yeah, no.
You heard it.
We were, Becky, as always, you've done this with me many a times. We're so glad to have you both as a group. This was like a weird, I don't know what sparked this idea other than it was a rom-com movie. It felt right to have like two people do it that had not seen it as a couple. So we appreciate that you both made the time to talk about it with us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Likewise, anytime. I'm happy to also get Brad to watch more movies for the first time.
Hey,
this is probably the best way to get me to watch blind spot movies.
Hold him accountable.
If we can serve to force feed good movies on Brad for you, Becky, then we will do that. Once a year, we'll bring Brad on here and we'll make him watch something he won't watch without us making him. You can pick the movie, Becky.
Again, I always tell folks who listen to this, you don't have to listen to these in any order. It's just if you've seen the movie and you know the movie, check out our conversations on it. But if you're listening to this sometime down the road, there's also a Misery episode right on its heels, which we are moving up. This was the actual planned January episode because it does have the New Year's thing about it. And it had nothing to do with the passing of Reiner and his wife. But I am moving up the Misery episode because of that, just because we want to keep talking about him. So there may be a Brad run-in on that episode. We'll see. I may just text Becky and be like, watch Misery this week, and then have Brad call in. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Phone to Brad.
I'll be around.
Phone to Brad. All right. Thank you both.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Cam, do you remember how we actually met in person?
I'm not sure that I do. It's weird. I have a feeling about where it was, but I'm not sure it's right. So I'm curious if you're going to say the same place I'm thinking.
I can say we were online friends first through our mutual Aaron B. Kuntz of Paper Street. I believe we were like Facebook attached before we had met. The first time I met you in person was I flew out to Austin for Fantastic Fest, and I want to say 2012 because it was partially a wedding gift from the aforementioned Aaron Kuntz to go to Fantastic Fest, get a full badge, and that was a nice, very nice present. That's the same day I met Alex Uding, I met Shane Domrong-Chai, and I met Newman T. Pug, all in Austin. And I do remember Shane drove us to the Zynga offices, which was up near the famous Office Space building somewhere up 183, I think. And I walked in and spotted you immediately. You were the loudest person in the room, walking around with no shoes on.
I still am, and I still do.
Is that sort of your recollection or no?
Yeah, that is actually where I thought it was. It's the old Zynga offices when we still worked there. I vaguely recall you having come into Austin to visit. I didn't remember there was Fantastic Fest because I don't think I went in 2012. It was one of the last ones I didn't go to, I think. But I vaguely recall you coming into the offices and meeting you there for the first time. I wasn't 100% sure that was the absolute first time I had met you. But yeah, we had been like gang up on people who don't agree with us on Facebook friends for a while. And I think that was the first time. And then I think the second time was when we were shooting a short film before we were even making features way back in the old days. We were shooting a short film that you showed up. You like moved to Austin and showed up like 15 minutes after you got into town for like day one of this movie shoot.
Yep, we shot a short called Honor Student, which you can find actually on the Paper Street YouTube page. And it was true. I moved there. I went to bed, woke up, and was on set for call time next morning, much to the chagrin of the aforementioned Alicia Hills, who had to help unpack a house for 2 days before I could come back to the real world. And
that is when everyone at Paper Street fell in love with Alicia, that she let you just like hop out of the car as it was running and roll in front of us.
She gave me a hard time about it for a little while because the house happened to be bug bombed a few times. So there was just all manner of critter was like crawled out from under the cabinets. But
that sounds like Austin.
It worked out. So,
I think that is the first time I remember spending any actual time with you.
You know what? Our meet cute's not been very good. I kind of want to bring my wife on and just do a meet cute with her because it's much more pleasant. Ours is very unremarkable.
Yeah, it didn't. Hopefully everyone else's is better. This is one of the ones that would have been cut from When Harry Met Sally.
Exactly.
They're just like, these people aren't interesting enough, and so no thank you.
But I still like you all these years later, so I guess it's still going to have a happy ending.
The real question is, when did I pass Kuntz for being your favorite person in Paper Street?
Day 2 of Honor Student?
It's funny because it's true.
Our thanks again to Becky and Brad. We are glad that they took to this movie, as I was pretty confident they would after Brad expressed multiple times his love for maybe a middling rom-com, if you will, and You've Got Mail, which I actually think is not that bad at all.
Yeah, it's up there. It's not quite, it doesn't have quite the same juice as When Harry Met Sally, but it's definitely in the upper echelon.
Yeah, the one I need to revisit too, like I said, is Sleepless in Seattle. It's been a number of years. I think I only saw the movie maybe one time. Don't know if it holds up as well. It doesn't feel like it's talked about as often, or maybe it's just not streaming as prominently as stuff like You've Got Mail.
Yeah, I don't know. Because I spend less time with rom-coms, probably, they're kind of lumped together in my brain. And so I don't really think of any one of those two being much more talked about than the other, but neither of them are movies I spend a ton of time talking about outside of When Harry Met Sally podcasts.
Right.
So
I don't think either have the quotability of this one for sure, as we've gone through some of the quotes. I'd forgotten the one my wife just brought up to me about, you know a good man like you know a good melon. She cited that in her vows to me, in fact. I'd forgotten that, so apologies, wife.
Are you hiding her name from the people, or
oh no, Alicia
you just call her
Talley
wife?
Is
okay.
Oh no, that's for her when she's listening later. She's like, hey, shout out.
That's her first person. I get it.
There you go. That's what I was doing. Shouting her out.
I'm with. Hi, Alicia.
Yes. In this post wrap up, we do a little by the numbers stuff. So we'll talk box office for a second. The film had a platform rollout, and it grossed $1,094,000 and change in less than 50 theaters. And then upon wide release, ultimately grossed 92.8 in North America. That was on a $16 million budget. And internationally, it had taken in an additional $100 million, bringing the worldwide total close to 193, which again, that's a big hit for 1989.
Looking at this 1989 box office list, we used to be a society, man.
I know, right?
We had it all and we let it walk away. The fact that Look Who's Talking and Harlem Nights and Uncle Buck and Turner and Hooch were like box office sensations is so crazy in the year 2026. That stuff was as huge. I mean, Rain Man made $139 million. If you release Rain Man now, it would make $2.5 million at the box office. Like, you couldn't put The Rock in Rain Man and get someone to show up. Hell, the only guy you could put in Rain Man right now to get people to show up is Tom Cruise.
Oh, I have good news for you. They did 1988.
And it worked then and it works now.
Yeah, no, 89 was the year of Batman. It kind of blew away everything at the time. Indiana Jones and Last Crusade came in behind it at number 2. Lethal Weapon 2 at number 3. Rain Man at 4. Big hit. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Look Who's Talking 6. Ghostbusters 2 at 7. Dead Poets Society at 8. Parenthood at 9. That movie came up during the talk. Back to the Future 2 at 10. And Harry Met Sally just missing the top 10 with only $1 million less bucks domestic. It came in at number 11 for the year. So yeah, good year.
Great year. What a year, man.
And I didn't even name Field of Dreams, Sea of Love, Pet Sematary, and some other stuff were in the teens there.
Yeah, no, they're just 89 was a really great year for film. Both
I feel like every 80s year we run down, we say that though, because every movie's still somewhat in the culture, that was kind of a hit at the time. I don't want to derail the podcast, which is probably already at 2 hours, but I think the 80s doesn't get enough credit. I think people shit on it as a pop culture decade. I think they think the music and movies are kind of, I don't know, lesser than the 70s and the 90s. But I think the 80s, maybe not quite on the par with the 70s as far as film goes, but I think the 80s is a very, very underappreciated pop culture decade. I'm not just saying that as a man who was born in 1980, but I'm sure that helps. There's extreme nostalgia for it for the past 20 years in our society. I mean, you see how many things are, showing such fealty to the 80s because all the people who grew up in it. But yeah, it is lumped between 2 decades that just had some breakout, incredible artistic stuff in both, like you said, music and movies. But it's not like you can't find gems in every single year of that decade too, though, of course.
100%. Yeah. I mean, just a really underappreciated movie decade. There's so many. I mean, 89, we just listed 15 absolute bangers in the box office. So yeah, I mean, 89, great year. The 80s, a great movie decade, maybe not quite on par with the 70s and the 90s, but not as far behind as I think a lot of people think it is.
Yeah. We'd brought up during the show that original screenplay was its sole Oscar nom, and the good movies it was up against and lost to Dead Poets Society. Ultimately, it did win the BAFTA for original screenplay. And then AFI has given it a few nods. It ranked 23rd on the 100 Years, 100 Laughs. It ranked 25th on the 100 Years, 100 Passions.
The hell does that even mean?
I like love stories,
There's 24 better love stories than When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah.
I mean, Casablanca and what else? Yeah, I mean, I could maybe name 10.
We'll have to find that list off air.
I'm guessing there aren't very many. There aren't very many ROMs in that rom-com list.
Right.
Or not. Sorry, strike that. Reverse it. Not too many coms in that ROM list.
That's the thing. It's boosted up there because of comedies don't get enough love. So they're very likely a lot of dramas. We'd mentioned on the show 33rd on the 100 movie quotes from AFI, the famous "I'll have what she's having," and then we'd sometimes run down like if it's in a genre where it ranked in a lot of genre lists. And this one was just number one almost across the board. 70 best rom-coms via Time Out had it at number one. 42 best rom-coms via Rolling Stone had it at number one. 40 best rom-coms via Harper's Bazaar number one. Among many lists I was looking at, it was always somewhere in the top 5, if not number one.
Well, I've got bad news for them. On the Cameron list of great rom-coms of all time, they come in at number 2 behind Bull Durham. But you win some, you lose some.
Bull Durham is a good one. I don't see a lot of people talking about that one these days as much, but it's pretty strong. And again, I do wonder sometimes now, every time I say that, I'm like, movies not readily available on streaming all the time. And I do think that helps bring movies back to prominence. Unfortunately, people are so kind of Netflix subservient that if it's on Netflix, they'll watch it. And if it doesn't have it, sometimes a person won't see it. I know Angels in the Outfield randomly was like unavailable for the past 10 years and just randomly popped up on Disney one day. I'm like, oh, there it is. And it, was watched by a new 10,000 people or whatever. So it does help that stuff can be readily available on streaming. So
can we do a whole separate podcast where we talk about how annoying I find it that Disney Plus just doesn't have all the Disney shit on it from forever? Like, what is the point of me having your stupid streaming service if you're not going to have the stuff I want? Like, drives me bonkers that I just don't go, oh, like, yeah, that's an old Disney movie. I want to watch it. It's on Disney Plus. It's never there.
Well, you grew up in the VHS era where they were advertised commercials on TV like, hey, this Alice in Wonderland's going back in our vault. Buy the VHS
catalog.
now.
Yeah.
So they used to have this whole fake vault where they would put stuff away for a little while. At least that their animated features are 100% on the service. But I know what you mean. There's tons of old Disney TV movies and Wild World of Disney and all those kind of things. I do wish that old stuff was all readily available.
Waited 3 years for Something Wicked This Way Comes to show up on Disney Plus, and it didn't show up until this Halloween, which I finally got a chance to watch it. Yeah, it's just super frustrating that if you're going to pay all that money for those streamers, the movies should be readily available.
They're not all rights issues. Some of them they're just sitting on, like you said.
I think it's to me, it's they just don't want to spend the money to keep every single one of those on a server somewhere. And like, tough shit. That's the deal you made. Like, it drives me nuts.
Not to defend the giant mouse house, but they are better at keeping their IP on their server than anybody else. Though, like, when HBO Max launched, they probably should have been like, we are the home of Fast and the Furious and Harry Potter and whatever other WB. Sorry, that's Universal. But Harry Potter should have been like their thing. Like, this is the home of this giant franchise. But they still window it out every 6 months. It goes to Peacock or it goes to Netflix.
And early on, you can get away with the whole like, oh well, we had farmed those rights out somewhere else, and we have to wait for them to come back. That was the thing with Disney Plus when it first came out, is like, this will show up on this day because that's when it runs out its clock at Netflix or whatever. And like, I get that. But now that we're X number of years into all this streaming, it's just like, if it's a Universal movie, I should be able to find it on Peacock, full stop.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Yeah, like, why aren't the Universal monsters there 24/7? Like, that should be what you're banking. The way Disney is good at that with like, hey, Pixar's only here. If it's somewhere else, it's still always going to be here. Same with the MCU and Star Wars. It will always at least have a home here. But yeah, Universal and Warner's, I wish, would take a page out of that and be like, no, these are our giant IPs. These are very first world complaints.
They are. I mean, I've got other complaints, but they're for a different themed podcast.
Exactly. And then the one other thing we do, we should, I got to get a website set up for this for both Becky's Deep Cut Slasher of the Week on the regular pod, and then the friend of the show status we always joke about on our pod here is anytime somebody gets a secondary mention, much like how Screen Drafts will call it the Marquee of Fame, we have our own friend of the show status, and Billy Crystal joins that as he has been in a previous movie, The Princess Bride. Carrie Fisher, who we forgot to actually mention, having done Scream 3 with Alex Cuervo, she popped up twice after that in The Burbs. So this is now her third caveated kind of a show up, glorified cameo in Scream 3. But she's been in The Burbs and this movie now as well.
Fun fact, Carrie Fisher joins only Robert De Niro as 3-time recipients of friend of the show status. And then Nev, Courtney, and what's Dewey's real name?
David Arquette. Sorry, it's a long week.
Dewey Arquette. Those three technically have been on the show 4 times because we did all 4 Scream movies, but that's kind of cheating. So
I know that's because in that regard, Kevin Williamson would be a 4-timer. But yeah, Scorsese and Reiner being the only 2-timer filmmaker.
Well, now hold on with the Kevin Williamson nonsense. We don't do writers, and he didn't direct the first 3.
No, but he is a 4-time as a writer.
Yeah, we don't do writers. I mean, God, if we get into writers, it's going to be...
Oh, my goodness. Are we going to...
Also,
let's take a page out of Hollywood and not give the writers any credit.
That's the spirit. Also, friend of the show status, Rob Reiner, who gets his second movie here with Princess Bride coming before, basically he and Billy Crystal, a package deal on the show so far. So, yeah, he becomes one of the first filmmakers. Is he the first filmmaker we've done twice? No, we've done Scorsese. We've done... Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so
we'll get more as we go for sure. And Rob Reiner, this won't be the last time we talk to him, as people are going to find another episode sooner than later with him.
Kind of crazy to think that we did 2 Rob Reiner movies before we did 2 Steven Spielberg movies. Just putting that out there. Feels weird. We'll have to get on that.
We have to do a Spielberg movie.
Have we not done a single Spielberg movie?
I don't believe we have.
That's wild.
Get on it. Who's not seen a major Spielberg?
Yeah, right. Call in. Are you someone we want to talk to for 2 hours and also haven't seen a Steven Spielberg
movie?
Chris,
you're young. You've missed lots of things.
Yeah, come on, people. Who hasn't seen Jurassic Park? Send us an email.
I know that's Cameron's White Whale is that movie. I think mine's probably Back to the Future. I'd like to see
we're never
nearish our age who has not seen one of those 2 movies.
We're never going to get Jurassic Park, and I've come to grips with it. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, hit us up. We'll put you on the pod. Not just any random person, someone we know.
All right. Well, this one has run long, but it was worth it. I was very glad. We were very glad to have both Becky and Brad talk When Harry Met Sally. And it was nice to revisit this one. I think it's one that definitely holds up. I would revisit this one again. I know I will because my wife will put it on within the next year. It's one of her comfort movies. So last thing, of course, just rest in peace to both Rob and Michele Reiner. Tragic passing. We hate that it kind of had a cloud over this episode, which was already pre-planned for this month. But I'm with you, man. Like we said at the top, it affected me so much worse than I was realizing. And just because of how much these movies from that 80s and 90s stretch resonated with me in my youth and how quotable all of them are and how much it, as we talk about, he just was in the zeitgeist and was, God, I said this on the show, had an active storyline happening on The Bear, and I hate that it's never going to be resolved now.
Yeah, that's it all sucks. Everything about it sucks. And Rob Reiner, you will be missed.
Indeed. And hopefully we gave you a little reprieve from all the suck, because it is everywhere. Thank you all for listening. If you stuck around this long, for Cameron Burns and for Becky and Brad, I am Shawn Talley saying, don't be late to the party.
I'll have what he's having.
The first time we met, we hated each other.
No, you didn't hate me. I hated you. The second time we met, you didn't even remember me.
I did too. I remembered you. The third time we met, we became friends.
We were friends for a long time.
And then we weren't.
And then we fell in love. 3 months later, we got married.
It only took 3 months.
12 years and 3 months.